Hey there, thanks for tuning in to the DMZ America Podcast for Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. Coming to you from the left, I am editorial cartoonist Ed Rawl.
Coming to you from what used to be the right, I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis.
It's good to see you, Scott. And if you're wondering why we're here at this weird hour, that's Scott's fault, not mine, but I'm not complaining. 2 p.m. is actually more convenient for me as well.
Is it?
But we're usually here at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
But we can talk about the time. It's all right. I see that you have the flag of our new colony.
Yes, apparently. Is it going to be a state? That's what I want to know.
No, it's not. So apparently, Donald Trump said repeatedly that we had to have Greenland in order to keep the Russians and Chinese from threatening our national security. All of Greenland, which is bigger, by the way, than Louisiana Purchase.
It is.
It is, just barely, but it is. And then it turns out, well, actually, all we really need under this framework is effective sovereignty over a small patch of ice surrounding our existing military facility.
Is that the framework? Is that the one
That's the framework.
That's what the deal maker of the century made. That's fantastic.
Yeah, basically, we have a big consulate. We have, you remember holidays on ice. Well, this is consulate on ice.
This is not non-military action on ice. I mean, it was preposterous. Because
I'm not complaining about the no war thing, but this is But Trump does come out of this looking really like a fool and a wuss.
He's demented. He has now entered Joe Biden territory. He's always kind of been there in terms of intelligence, but now in terms of actions, in terms of mental acuity, he is. I'm convinced that now we can start drawing cartoons and making comments that he's senile. His dad died of senility. There is a genetic component to it. And as Ted and I have said numerous times, we both have dealt with parents and with family members who have struggled with that. We don't say this with any like, woohoo, they're demented, because that's a level of cruelty that even Ted and I won't aspire to. Even Ted and I. So no, I think he is. I mean, you listen to him and he makes less and less sense. He talks like your crazy, senile great uncle. I mean, he just does. And that's where we are now. And some of the other, what am I trying to say? Some of the other policies, some of the other actions of this administration are just, well, they're terrifying. And they are not being driven by a sane individual. And so that's where we are with this. So I'm glad we're not going to war over Greenland. I'm pleased that that's not a thing that's going to happen. But, we're still kidnapping presidents. We're still of other countries. We're still stealing their oil. We are still threatening other countries. And he's effectively, Ted, let's be really honest here. He's effectively destroyed for a generation the relationship of the United States with Europe. Now, there are some people who say, fine, fuck them, we don't care. Screw those little effeminate, blah, 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 blah. You can say that, but then you're also talking about a pretty sizable chunk of the world that controls a very sizable chunk of the capital in the world. So if you have any care about, say, economics or just common sense, pissing those people off, what did we gain from this? In his 1 hour speech, did you see that from Davos?
I did.
It was unhinged.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would really call it a speech. I mean, he doesn't really give speeches very often, right? At most, you end up with a few minutes of prepared remarks. Then he immediately goes off script. I'm sure he has a fully prepared speech in all of these cases.
I know.
But he starts running off with the mouth and just starts ranting. It's freeform jazz. It's weird as shit. I miss Hannibal
really
Lecter,
is.
our good friend Hannibal Lecter, that he always talks about. He used to talk about.
And we have a friend who's been on the show, and we should have him on again soon, and that's Charles Lipson, who tries mightily to put an intellectual spin on what Trump is doing. And even this one, Charles had a little difficulty saying, well, it sends a tough message to Europe. It shows that we're in control, that Trump is not afraid to follow through on his threats. And it's just like, well, dude, I'm not sure that's a good thing. If the crazy guy on your street who, steal, you're playing baseball in the street and your ball goes in his yard and he'll go out there and steal it
or shoot
not
you.
give it back.
Or shoot you.
And say that, yeah, that guy, you know what? He has a point. This doesn't jibe here. And Ted, you forwarded me an article yesterday about from the New York Times, and the author's name escapes
Thomas Edsel.
And I have to admit, I was not familiar with that columnist, but he writes about ICE and what ICE is becoming, and what we're now learning, what ICE sees itself as, and it's terrifying. Did you want to go down to some of the list? I mean, I actually kept some of the quotes. Like, apparently there's a welcome video, and oh gosh, what's his name? Where did it now? Now it's okay. It's one thing about digital I love is that some things just sort of disappear.
Yeah, I miss the old days of talk radio where you actually had the article printed out and you could just like shuffle it around.
I can remember going on some of the Gary Meyer, kind of legendary radio personality in Chicago, and you'd go into a studio and he would have, it must have been 50 things printed out in front of him.
If there was static electricity, the whole place would have burned up.
But okay, here it is. Instead of department has shown employees a video of Stephen Miller. First of all, Stephen Miller, what the hell does he have to do with, I mean, he's what? The deputy chief of staff for the president. But anyway, he says, quote, "To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. Anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist, like, January 6th, can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. The Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice."
Or maybe not justice, but they will face justice. They are, I mean, look, they're completely out of control. The most recently, Attorney General Pam Bondi just announced that she arrested 2 people who went to a Minneapolis church service and yelled at the pastor for being a member of ICE. Now, disturbing a church service isn't cool. I will say that, even as the resident atheist here.
Yes.
But it's, do you arrest someone over being rude? No, and it's a violation of their First Amendment rights. There's, and similarly, as we were just talking, the news broke that President Trump is suing J.P. Morgan Chase and its CEO for $5 billion, claiming that the bank dropped him as a client for political reasons. Actually, they dropped him as a client because he doesn't really pay his bills. But
well, there's that.
But the point is that far be it from me to side with J.P. Morgan Chase, but in this case, I think I will. Former banker solidarity. But I mean, the ICE is, they are in the title of this article, the Trump's goon squads.
Yeah.
And basically, the part that I found, there was a lot to hate here. There was the stuff about the steroids and how the ICE is recruiting people who appear to be heavily steroided up. It's a problem in domestic policing all over the country, and it's something that I don't think it's going away anytime soon. That's terrifying, and we know that that basically these are people who are tear gassing pregnant women. They are shooting, they're shooting people from 5 feet away. They're pointing their guns at people who aren't threatening them whatsoever. They're being told by the Vice President of the United States in doing all this that they have total, absolute immunity. And it's terrifying. And then also they are winking, nudging at the far right. But I mean far right. I don't mean right-wing Republicans. I mean like neo-Nazis. So for example, on January 9th, the Department of Homeland Security posted, "We'll have our home again."
Yes.
That's a lyric from a song that the Proud Boys and other white nationalist groups have adopted as their song. This was accompanied by a link where you could sign up to enlist in ICE. In August, Department of Homeland Security shared an ICE recruitment poster that said, "Which way, American man?" which refers to apparently a white supremacist pamphlet, which reads, "West way, which way, Western man?" Not like cowboy, but like Western Europe, which argues that race consciousness and discrimination on the basis of race are absolutely essential to any race's survival. This is why the Jews are so fiercely in it for themselves and fiercely against it for us, because we are their intended victim. I would say it also harkens to the famous Nazi election poster, und du, and you, right? Which is has this terrifying image of a faceless, helmeted, brainless German soldier. In October, the Border Patrol posted a video on Facebook, on its official Facebook page, of agents loading guns, driving through the desert, as a clip of, ironically, Michael Jackson playing "They Don't Care About Us." And it's the famous anti-Semitic line, "Jew me, sue me, everybody do me, kick me, kike me," which, for people who are old enough to remember that, I remember that being quite the gross kind of, anti-Semitism controversy of the 80s. So they're recruiting neo-Nazis, steroided, dumb, who are dumb as shit, illiterate, can't read or write English. They're told you don't have to have an advanced degree to be a member of ICE.
Or a degree.
Or a degree, or a high school degree.
Right.
You just have to be 18 years old, breathing. Literacy isn't required. So here's the thing. Here's my take, Scott. These new, you can be 18 years old, hired by ICE. You can make up to $200,000 in your first year.
That's amazing.
with no GED. Okay, you don't have to speak English. You don't have to be in shape. You don't have to have any pertinent experience. So just think, if you are that 300-pound, dumb as shit, uneducated, no fucking brains, or let's just say you're 18 years old and you have a high school degree, but let's say you have a college degree, but they pay you $200,000 a year. Let's say you're intelligent and well-spoken, but they offer you $200,000 a year. That's a job you could never get doing anything else.
Oh, God,
ever.
no.
You can't get hired in this day and age with AI and all that. You can't get hired as a coder. So, you go to work for ICE. Now you're grateful as shit. You love these people. They are paying you and they're giving you extraordinary power. You're told you're a patriot. Yeah. You're an American hero. You're cleaning up America. You go out there, you're getting rid of the scum, the pedophiles who are stealing American jobs. You're cleaning up the country. These are drug dealers, gangbangers. Fuck them. Get rid of them. The president's got your back. Well, okay, so why would you be anything other than wildly enthusiastic, right? That's part one. And that's dangerous, because no one should be that gung-ho and have a firearm. Secondly, what happens when the last illegal immigrant is deported, Scott? We will see that day. ICE has the budget that's already been approved of by not only the Republican, but by the Democratic Congress. They approved it. They're going to have hundreds of thousands of shock troops, stormtroopers, out on the streets of American cities within months. Yeah. And they are they're personally loyal to the president of the United States. They're not loyal to the Constitution. They're loyal to President Trump. and
Yes.
to DHS and Vice President Vance and AG Bondi, right? This is their story. They're going to run out of illegals. I mean, they're going to be the biggest military force in the world. They're going to be bigger than the Chinese army. They're going to be bigger than the Russian army.
It's going to be more than 1 million people?
Yes. Yes, that's the plan. It's the biggest employment project that the Trump administration has come up with. Post-Doge, this is like he's giving back, right? So I'm sorry to go on and on.
No, that's
what's going
okay.
to happen when, they're going to fill the gulags? They're going to expel all the rascals and the non-rascal illegal.
And they're going to send them to, and by the way, there are no constitutional constraints, or restraint. They're sending them to prisons in El Salvador, which is and now we're hearing stories from what that prison's like, which surprises nobody.
Well, they're
But
building
also
their
sending
own
them to
gulag
prisons.
here in the U.S. too.
They're building them. Well, they're also like sending the business overseas, which I think should stay domestic. If we're going to incarcerate, and have concentration camps, we should keep it within the United States.
True. Those are I'm not even kidding. Those are American death camp guard jobs that are being
for Americans, damn it.
For Americans.
Not sending, but they have right now, they're sending people, Americans, some American citizens, mistakenly, they say, to a camp in Uganda. They're looking at Eritrea, which is a poor man's
Somalia.
Poor man's Djibouti, which in Djibouti is a poor man's Somalia. Right? So it's like Eritrea is a horrid, wretched place. All of this is to say that it comes back to a very basic question, and that's the constitutionality of what's going on. And when anybody is told that they are not being constrained by the Constitution, you've just set up at that moment the United States ceases to exist, because we're not held together by that long of a history, even though we're celebrating 250 years. Woohoo! That's a blink of an eye for a lot of countries on this planet. But what holds us together is the single idea that we all agree that the Constitution is the law of the land and we will adhere to it. Well, here you have an administration that is openly saying, no, you guys, that Constitution thing, you're above the Constitution. It does not apply to you. Well, that should send a chill down because here's the thing, folks. Yeah, today it's brown people, and you don't give a shit about brown people. But tomorrow, as Ted said, the brown people will be gone. And then it's going to be you and your wife.
Unless, Scott,
unless what?
Unless they throw a big party and they're like for ICE, and they go and they close shop and they're like, guys, job well done. Now we all go home to our zero income and our methamphetamine.
Yes, you can go back to your meth-based economies and your short order cook jobs that,
if you're lucky,
less than minimum wage.
If you're lucky.
Well, and that's the other side of this equation, Ted, that no one's talking about. But I think it's important and instructive to look at the history of things like this. Let's say this continues to grow. It continues to be Trump's thugs. And then Trump miraculously is not in office in 2029 in January, and someone else is sworn in. Let's say it's a Democrat. Do you seriously think for a moment that Democratic president,
President Buttigieg
or Newsom or AOC, any of them is going to look at this, because this is how it's happened before. They're going to look at this and everyone is going to say, okay, so you're going to dismantle this, right? You're going to get rid of this goon squad, right? And they're going to say, let's not be too hasty. It was sort of like the Patriot Act under Obama.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, and look, I can make this case myself, right? President Stantis, I know that you said some harshly worded things back on that podcast you had with Ted Rall before we had him killed. But let me just say it. I know you miss Ted enormously, even though he left you his political button collection, and you're grateful for that. But this is 1 million people that are working now for ICE. I mean, that's 1 million jobs. That's a lot of economic activity. Are you sure you want 1 million heavily armed, heavily steroided, newly unemployed people walking the streets of our country, unemployed. That's going to cause trouble. There could be mass shootings. There could be even an assassination attempt against you, President Stantis, even against you. And then also, you never know, there could be an uprising by the anti-Stantis forces. And, it would be nice to have a heavily armed rapid response team that could nip this kind of problem in the bud should it arise.
That's exactly my point, is that what tends to happen with executive power and the growth of executive power is the next guy runs and says, that's just terrible. Isn't that terrible? That's terrible. Ted, I think that's terrible. Ted, do you think that's terrible? That's terrible.
Awful.
Well, that's terrible. We should definitely, we won. I don't think it's that terrible. Do you, Ted? No, I don't think it's terrible at all.
And so after the Bolshevik Revolution, they move into the Tsar's palace.
Yes, there it is. And there you go. So, and that is the danger, has always been the danger here. Now, Ted and I have had this conversation. Have we ever seen this before? And I mean, you can go back to Roman times when Caesar crossed the Rubicon. And
you should explain just briefly for people. Everyone knows the expression, but explain why it was notable.
The Rubicon was a river that separated then Italy from Europe, from Gaul. And the law of Rome was that no general, no soldiers could cross the Rubicon as a unified force to come into Italy. It was, and the law made sense because it was so you didn't come and you overthrow the republic. Romans loved being part of the republic. Of course, being a Roman, a lot of it was, you weren't a slave, you were male, you were moneyed, you were landowner, stuff like that. But they adhered to the idea that this is a republic. It will always be a republic. We love being a republic. We're proud of the republic. Who's that guy crossing the Rubicon? And then all of a sudden the republic's over. I mean,
and you weren't allowed, the rules were that no one was allowed to cross with a military force.
Exactly. And that's where Caesar crossed the line. And that was the end of the republic. Yes, Caesar Augustus they still had a Senate. They still had elections, but
it became a rubber stamp body after that.
Right. And they were emperors. They weren't tribunes. They weren't elected. It became, for a while, inherited.
It was hereditary royalty, yeah.
Right. After Augustus came Tiberius. After Tiberius came Caligula. That one didn't work out so great. And then came Claudius, and you down the line. It has happened before. Because if something's held together by an idea, Ted, it's fragile. And so for
unless everybody believes in it forever, and they don't.
And it doesn't work. It can't work. If you can say, okay, well, the courts rule.
I mean, the Roman Republic was an idea that lasted a long time.
Well, and then Sulla came along 150 years before Caesar, and he was a dictator for a period, and then he walked away, which is still rather stunning in retrospect. And they brought back the Republic with the tribunes and the yearly elections and all of that. And then Caesar shows up, and that ended that. That can happen here. I mean, there are people who are convinced that we will not have an election this year in 2026.
I'm not one of them. I don't think the odds are less than 50%, but I don't think the odds are 100% that we'll have that election.
Well, and if you could have the election, but it could be in the guise of a sham election. It could be.
I mean, I don't know if you blink and you miss it because the news is moving so fast these days, Scott. But over the weekend, I don't know if you took note, or actually, I'm sorry, it was yesterday. If you took note of the story where the two whistleblowers exposed the fact that that there was a secret deal between Doge. Doge basically engaged in an arrangement with an unnamed political advocacy organization, which may or may not be Turning Point USA, to turn over all of the Social Security data for American voters over to this private entity with a view towards overturning election results this fall.
How do you do that?
Well, I guess they would use the Social Security number to discredit voters and say, oh, these people are not who they said they were when they voted, to try to, I would imagine, to decertify votes.
I can see something along those lines. I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
It's chicanery for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a. I mean, this is a fact. The Department of Justice has admitted it. So this did happen.
Good Lord. Well, okay. So this type of thing. And you also have, we talk about, I mean, there's so many moving parts to this, but who came out with the report in the last 56 hours, Ted, that Donald Trump has made $1 billion in the first year as president?
Yeah.
An additional.
Yeah. I don't know who came up with that, but that's actually, I'm surprised it gets so little.
His family's made considerably more.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and this bothers no one in MAGA world. I mean, the whole idea of MAGA was to drain the swamp. I mean, this isn't draining the swamp. This is just
and putting America first, which, I'm sorry, going to war with Denmark is not putting America first. Kidnapping the government, the president of Venezuela is not putting America first.
Well, in the notification, the note he sent to Norway is unhinged. It's bizarre when it says things like, I'm no longer just purely for peace because you wouldn't give me the peace prize. And firstly, the Norwegian government doesn't do that. That's not their.
First of all, it's Sweden. Okay. It's not Norway, and it's not the Swedish government.
Yeah.
It's Sweden.
No, it's Norway. No, it's Norway.
Is it Norway?
It is.
Oh, I thought it was Sweden. All right. My apologies.
No, it's Norway, but that's okay.
Maybe I'm more unhinged.
You could be president of the United States.
Yes, apparently.
Send a scurrilous note to Sweden saying, "How dare you?"
How dare you? I will send my note to Denmark.
But the fact is that he just to send this note saying, because you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm going to militarily invade Greenland. And in fact, you did a cartoon that joked about this. 10 years ago?
2003.
2003, because you're thinking of the most obscure, ridiculous country to invade.
That's right.
And you came up with Greenland.
And we have like a George W. Bush type character screaming like, "Death to the butchers of Nuke."
It is amazing. I recently gave a speech, and I kind of have retooled my standard speech from here's what's happening today. Isn't it crazy? To, I've been doing this for a million years, ever since the Carter administration. So here's a cartoon starting with the Jimmy Carter administration and how many of these issues never go away. But the stuff we're facing today is new. The stuff we're facing today, we've never had to face a national goon squad. Ted and I have mentioned.
I really wanted to have this conversation with you, Scott, and we didn't really talk about this story before we went on the air, because you and I have privately mulled and publicly mulled, when will we know it's time to leave the United States? And, we talked recently about what are the odds that you and I will have to leave within, say, 3 years, in other words, before the end of this administration, or I should say the scheduled end of this administration. And it's and I said, I think the chances are about 75%. And it's because, look, it's a goon squad. It's a big goon squad.
Yeah.
They are like the Stormtroopers in Germany. Look, the thing is, the Stormtroopers in Germany, when they were beating up Jews in the streets of Berlin in 1935, they were breaking the law, right? They were breaking German law. They were guilty of assault. They should have been arrested by Berlin police. They operated with impunity because the police knew that they were, these guys are off limits. You can't touch them. Many Berlin cops would have arrested them to maintain order, but they couldn't. That's what we're looking at here. I mean, the Minneapolis police has been cut out and told that they can't investigate the shooting of Renee Good in their own jurisdiction. I mean, a woman was shot sitting in her car. It's like, maybe that guy should walk, Jonathan Ross, but I think a police investigation is clearly called for. The state attorney general's office was told to fuck off and to stand down. And there's basically, this is federal power, and these are goons. Also, Scott, they're not identified. I mean, you got to hand it to the Stormtroopers and the SA and the SS. Those guys were identified. They showed their faces. You knew who they were. These people are wearing balaclavas. They don't have a insignia. They have unmarked cars. They change their license plate every day on these cars. These are monsters, and they're driving. And also, we've already had cases where people pretending to be ICE agents have kidnapped and raped women. I'm with ICE, come with me, and then they have their way with them.
Well,
I mean, and it's going to happen where someone's going to be afraid of being kidnapped, and they are going to shoot and kill some ICE officers, and they will not be wrong.
I don't know. Well, I've never been a big fan of violence, but I am a big fan of due process. And also, I'm
in favor of self-defense, though. If someone's trying to grab you off the street and you're not sure who they are.
How many women have had that happen to them? They've been pulled over. They had a car with a light. It looked official. Yeah. Guy walks up and does horrible things to them.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
If someone came to my house, I would say no. Presumably, that's the thing, Ted.
Although there's a new memo that a couple of whistleblowers just exposed, Scott, where an internal directive to ICE that came out in March told all ICE agents and officers they don't have to get a warrant. They can break into any home in the United States and just conduct a fishing expedition and demand ID, and anyone who can't prove they're a U.S. citizen, they are allowed to drag off. Fourth Amendment be damned.
Yes. I mean, and this is the danger of this, the terror of this. As you've mentioned, you and I have both been seriously contemplating when is it time to leave, because I don't want to be a Jew in 1939 Germany.
No, it's not good.
I just don't want to be there then. And so what is the litmus test? What is the, at what point do you say, okay, enough's enough. This is terrifying. And we got to get out of here, because you and I have been vocal critics. You and I have written, you have a column. I do editorial cartoons.
We have this podcast.
We have and we have this podcast, and we have never been kind to this president or this administration. So,
but we've been fair.
What's that?
We have been fair, though.
I like to think so.
We don't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. When he's done good things, we've said so.
Well, and I said one of the few things I really loved about this guy was he was anti-war.
Me too.
Because war is stupid. It's wasteful. It costs a lot of money, costs lives, and people
it's bad for America.
It's good business, though, Ted. Let's be fair.
I think there's more business to be had in spending the money elsewhere.
So I need to scoot for a second, but could you talk more about what you feel the bar is for Ted Rall in terms of, what am I trying to say here? In terms of when is it time to leave? And I'd like to hear some people who happen to be listening in right now. I know it's a weird time and we may not have very many of them, but I need to scoot for just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, Scott. Yeah, so, following up what Scott had to say here, when will I know that it's time to leave the United States? Look, I'm not the kind of person who would leave the United States simply because to try to make some kind of political statement of approval or disapproval of the current regime. If I were going to do that, I would have left many decades ago. I haven't approved of any president whatsoever since I've been allowed to vote. I turned 18 in 1981. You can figure out the math there. For me, it would be a matter of self-preservation. And I guess my concern here is that once they start, ICE gets retooled. What will they be retooled to do? Where they're going to be probably directed towards domestic defense dissidents. And that's going to happen sooner rather than later. That's going to happen to people like me. And it's going to be probably not even like Scott or I are particularly high on that list. But what's going to happen is they're going to deploy AI. Infamously, IBM in their early punch card computer systems helped the Nazis find where Jews were during World War II so that they could be captured and deported and ultimately mass murdered. And similarly, I think what they're going to do here in the United States is they're going to put into AI, give me a list of everyone who's ever been a anti-American, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Republican Party. You choose the search term, and it's going to spit out a big list of names. And then they're going to start saying, okay, what are we going to do with these people? And they're going to be able to justify it either through a state of emergency. That would be, honestly, one of the big things I would look for is a state of emergency. Is there, Scott, I was just saying that for me, one of the big benchmarks would be a state of emergency, right? Like a state of emergency that justifies the suspension of civil liberties or free expression. That to me would be a signal that you and I are on bright yellow alert, and it's time to start packing our bags. Because the step after that, why would you declare such an emergency? In part, so that you could justify scooping up anybody who annoys you. And what's going to happen when you have a big goon squad force of 1 million dudes, 500,000 dudes, 1.5 million dudes, is they're just going to be looking to ingratiate themselves with their bosses and with the administration by picking up as many people as they can. And so it's not going to be like, let's go after the biggest enemy of the state. It's going to be like, let's just get all the enemies of the state. It's the same way that they're scooping up illegal immigrants now. They're not going after like, let's get the worst pedophile first. We'll get the second worst pedophile second. Then, it's not like that. They're just like, where can we find them? Down at the Home Depot, dropping off their kids at school in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. That's how they're doing it. They're just getting whoever, which is why they're going for like Cuban Americans in Little Havana in Miami, even though those are protected class. They're considered political refugees, and they're protected by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. Doesn't matter.
No, look at who else they're going after. They're actually deporting people who are here legally, who show up at court. They show up at court. They're doing the right things, Ted. They're following the rules, and they show up, and now. And I think they have a right to be terrified that they're not going to show up at court dates, because they know that if they show up at the court date, some ICE asshole is going to scoop them up and send them back to the country from which they escaped because they were fearing for their lives. I think Ted and I could be doing this show. I don't know. I mean, can you believe we're just 1 year into this administration?
It's shocking, right?
It really is, because it's just the whole thing is just flood the zone, right? Just keep throwing shit on the fridge and see what sticks. Do you on the Greenland issue, which is germane to the ICE issue, but the taunts of taco, Trump always chickens out. I don't know that he always does. I think the Greenland thing, he had to, because someone finally talked some sense into him, saying that you can't go to war against NATO. You're in it.
Right. I think John Kiriakou on Deprogram this morning said that he thinks Trump underestimated European solidarity and resolve.
I think that's true to a point. They were sending. Let's be clear, Ted. You and I both know this. Some of the NATO countries sent troops to Greenland to help shore up the defense of Greenland. It was like 10, and I'm not exaggerating. It was 10, a dozen troops. It was
28.
28. Okay. So 28 against our
28 troops.
I'm not sure. Let's say, I think this crisis has passed. It seems to have.
The Greenland crisis.
Yeah.
A phrase that you don't normally expect to hear.
No. In your lifetime, Ted, did you ever think for a moment?
No.
That there would be. The Greenland crisis has passed for the moment.
2 words that would not normally be in a phrase like as buddies.
Now okay. Let's look into Ted and I like to play this little game of what if, but couch it in historical if there's some history here. Let's assume for a moment the 2026 elections are held. They're free and clean elections, and the Democrats take the House. What happens then?
It's a good question.
And my sense is that ICE agents start scooping up Democratic Congress people.
That certainly could happen.
Don't forget the sergeant at
under
arms
the state
can
of
do that.
emergency. I think a state of emergency would be required, not necessarily for any legal reason, because we're past the law being important.
Yeah, why?
But I mean, I think for political consumption, right? I mean, they're trying to control domestic dissent, and they have to worry about domestic dissent even on the right, from in MAGA world. So in order to provide some window dressing here, I think there would be some kind of threat declared, the Ecuadorians are coming to kill us all, whatever, new COVID 26, who fucking knows? But they would declare some kind of national emergency to justify the suspension of habeas corpus, and then they're off to the races.
Well, we pretty much have that suspension already, don't we? I mean, literally, we just read at the top of this podcast, we just read some of the official documentation that habeas corpus does not exist.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I mean, that's what ICE is saying. I mean, of course, it's not true, like theoretically, but here's the thing about our system, and I don't really know how you would fix it, but you can't. It's kind of like, well, can the president break into everybody's houses and arrest them and take their guns? Like, not legal, not constitutionally. But can he do it? Sure, he can do it. And then what's the remedy? The remedy is you go to court and you whine about it and you hire a lawyer and you spend a whole fuck ton of money and you may or may not win. I mean, that's not really a great safeguard.
Well, and that's let's say Ted Rall is scooped up as an enemy of the state and they ship him off to Eritrea. I mean, you're gone.
I mean, like what I'm saying.
And by the time it gets
protection.
to the court,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, by the time it weaves through the courts, Ted has been in an Eritrean prison for 6 months. Yeah. Now, if Ted is alive, which is a big if, what other damages have been foisted on Ted?
And other people who are like thinking, I don't know if I want to piss off the administration. Look what happened to Ted.
Yeah, no, that Ted, you just hit the nub. You just hit the nail on the head. That's what ICE is. It's a tool of intimidation that, okay, yes, we're going to go after our enemies, but more importantly, what it's going to do is silence your enemies and your
future enemies.
It's a pretty effective tool because all of a sudden, I mean, look how Ted and I are talking.
Well, the smart move is to shut the fuck up, right?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Germans who did. There's a lot of Germans who, after the war,
and they weren't stupid.
Well, they went about their lives and they went and did stuff and they kept doing what they were doing. They worked at the job they were jobbing and they went to the house they were housing and to the family they were familying. And, and then at the end of the war, when they were asked, they're the ones who stood up and said, "Why did you invade us? What did we do to you?" And you just go, well, you're sort of imposing this really horrible, oppressive. It wasn't that bad. You guys the world overreacted. And that's where we're going to be with this, I suspect, if present trends continue. And I loved your column, I'm paraphrasing the headline, but effectively you said, fuck the Democrats, just organize because the Democrats are useless.
Yep.
And they have been this cautious talk. And I understand they see the polls, the recent polls that say there are more people in the center than ever in the history of the country. And they think that, well, if we become mamby-pamby and we kind of like say, yeah, sure, it's super constitution and sure, ICE is awful, but come on. That's not what we have to do right now. We have to march in the streets. I think what they're doing in Minnesota, frankly, is brave. Because, as Ted points out, rightfully, that these are steroided out lunatics with guns who are above the Constitution.
I'm not sure it's smart. I mean, I have to be very careful how I phrase this because we're on YouTube and stuff. But let's just say that, if it was World War II and you're in let's say the French resistance or the Polish resistance or whatever, and you're trying to resist the Nazis, do you go out and bug them and whistle at them? I mean, not really, right? I mean, it's not saving anyone. I mean, and we know what real resistance fighters did. They had a variety of, I mean, I know like on the left, we talk about that as a diversity of tactics. And, sure. I mean, look, Renee Good is dead because she basically harassed ICE. She bugged them with her parking sway. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it just seems to me like,
look at being scooped up for yelling at a preacher.
I think it's brave. Yeah, that too. I think it's brave, but I don't think it's effective.
Well, I think at least someone is standing up in the streets and saying no.
Well, that's something. Yeah, that's something.
No, it's something. It's more than Kristallnacht. It's more than,
But what would really truly be needed is for ICE to not be able to, and this is not going to happen, would be for ICE to not be able to show their face without just being anybody seeing them, just like randomly attacking them. Like everybody just attacked them, like by the hundreds. That's just not going to happen because people are not going to do that.
Well, they're rightfully scared because again, they can shoot you.
Yeah.
And it's
nothing will happen. You won't even get it. It won't even be investigated. Look, the city cops were told to stand down. State Attorney General Civil Rights Office was told to stand down. All the evidence was scooped up, so they couldn't investigate properly, even if they wanted to. And I'm sure they didn't make the shooter accessible. Then the FBI said, "Oh, we'll investigate," which they didn't. They chose not to. So that's where we stand.
Yeah. No, to say this is a red flag is wildly under
fuchsia.
Yeah, it's like, this is a bleeding red siren in your face. And if you're not,
that signal is up.
If you're not concerned, if you're not looking at this, and
you should be scared because they're coming for U.S. citizens now. Scott, they literally took, even as we speak right now, over a week ago, some Lakota Sioux and other Native Americans were kidnapped by ICE and sent to immigration gulags. These are U.S. citizens born in the United States. They're as U.S. citizen as it gets. Okay, they're as OG as it gets. They go back tens of thousands of years here. And
what was the motivation behind that?
Because ICE wants to be able to go onto the reservations and do their shit. And the tribal leaders said, "Fuck off." No. So
why would they want to go there? Is there, I mean, I don't understand.
I don't know. Maybe they think there's undocumented people hiding out there.
But don't forget Donald Trump from his first term, the beginning of his first term, has always hated and been a total dick towards the Native American community. If you remember, what the tribes do is they get together and they offer, some kind of token to the newly elected president. They have an event at the White House, and Donald Trump and his piece of shit administration and the assholes who work there put up behind the podium, which wasn't there before, a portrait of Andrew Jackson, the guy who did the Trail of Tears. This is a guy who was a monster towards Native Americans.
Yeah, he was.
And they did it as a big fat fuck you. Pardon my language, but I found this, when I saw this, I said, oh boy, we're in a different place now.
Yeah.
Because this was such a slap in the face.
He trolled them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, it would have been nice, honestly. I'm sure, I don't know if they saw the photo. I mean, not the portrait. If they did, it'd be, we need some blowback. What if they'd walked in and just been like, "We saw what you did there. This is incredibly offensive. You've offended all Americans with your unpatriotic display here. We're leaving."
Well, Ted, let me just,
that would have made a splash.
Let me throw up a very soft pitch for Ted Rall here. What was it? Less than a year ago, when the second Trump administration comes into office, he's going to have budget meet and greet with the Democratic leadership of the House and Senate. They come to the Oval Office. And again, these motherfuckers in his administration line his desk with Trump 2028 caps. Mm-hmm. Why didn't the Democrats who walked in there, and no more Democrats than I, say, "Oh, fuck you, no, absolute, not just no, but fuck no," and walk out? Why didn't they, Ted?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is part of it is like everybody's normal, right? Like I always wonder why people dig their own graves before they're shot when they know that they see the dead bodies lying there before them. Why don't they take that shovel and take a swing at one of the soldiers?
Yeah, what's the worst they're going to do? They're going to kill you?
Oh, yeah, really? I mean, I don't know. People really, why do people walk to the death chamber in prison instead of go out kicking and screaming?
Oh, I would absolutely be a lunatic.
Me too. I don't get it. Like, why make it easy on them, right? And I think also there's the ego thing. I got invited to the White House. Look at me. Like I told all my friends, I don't want to be embarrassing to anyone. I mean, look, I was trolled by Sean Hannity on Fox News. The guy like put his hand on me. He touched me and shoved me on the air. I had this tremendous urge at the time. I had a newborn baby. I hadn't slept in like months. I wanted to to go Geraldo on him and attack him with my chair. And I would have, if not for the thought. I was not worried at all about what people would think of me. I think I would have been a hero to all Democrats forever. Yeah,
probably.
But I was worried about like spending the night in the tombs and like all the legal shit that Fox would make me go through. And they'd press the case for forever. And what a pain in the ass it would be. He had it coming. He assaulted me. But am I going to take on this big News Corp? No, I'm not going to. So I think
none of the Democratic leaderships turn around. And
they could have also just like knocked the hats off the table. Here, Mr. President, you left some trash behind. Here, let me help you with that.
Yeah, that smacks of Pelosi's tearing the.
That was bad.
The State of the Union.
Better to just leave. Yeah, we're not going to be.
I would have picked up the hat. I would have picked up the hat and thrown it in his face and said, "Fuck you." You know what? Okay, this is what we're doing. Fuck you.
Yeah, we're done here. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, you can't allow yourself to be trolled.
And I like what you said. You kind of said something as you answered the question. You said they keep thinking things are normal, and they're not.
No.
They're just
normalizing behavior is deeply baked into people's psyche, though. When I had my lawsuit thing, I remember one of the things I was asked about was like, why did you talk to the cop normally, even though he was abusing you? And I was like, I looked up, like, well, that's a good question, right? And normalizing behavior is like why rape victims, for example, will write to their rapist a week later and say, "Oh, I had a good time." It's not that they lied. Some of them lied, but some of them didn't lie. Some of them really were raped, and we're chimps. We're monkeys. We want to keep the peace. And when someone's a wild and crazy chimp like Donald Trump, you're just sort of like, best to just be calm and speak softly. You're a good monkey, little Donald. We love you, little Donald. I really think that's it.
Who's a good monkey? You're a good monkey. Yeah. No, I think, no, I mean, and it's easier. It's always easier. It's get along to get along, it's an impulse, but I think that the time for that impulse has passed. You can't placate this guy. You can't placate his people. When you have
all you have is yourself and your dignity, and
you walk into a meeting and they have that. I mean,
and you have to know, by the way, when you walk into a meeting in Donald Trump's office, that you will be trolled in some way. Look at Mamdani. They made how Trump, now, as it turns out, Mamdani stood, Trump sat down. Trump thinks that's like he looks like the king and that Mamdani looks like his supplicant. I think it doesn't quite work because from Trump's point of view, because it just makes Trump look fat and maybe he can't stand up. And, so maybe that's okay. You can let that pass. But Mamdani has to know, like, this is a setup. You're going to film this to make me look bad.
And the handshake, that's, he pulls you in. So it makes it, so he's kind of the overpowering presence in that dynamic. And you just say, no,
no,
you're stronger than him. He's 79 years old. How strong can he be? I mean,
Scott, what's the point? What's the point for you when you're going to call and say, Ted, meet you at the airport?
I think, even high profile people, if they actually go after them and like, either commentators, people, a host of MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, something like that. Even though she said she actually talked about.
They are suing and investigating the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it starts. And now is there going to be criminal activity? Are they going to apply criminal, jurisdiction against those forces? Then I think that's when you and I, go to southern France and
and look, if it blows over, we can always come back later, right?
Yeah, I mean the flights do go both ways, but my suspicion is that
in my case, if they were to go after dual citizenship and force me to choose, I would leave.
Would you?
Well, I mean, it's like this. One country says, "Oh, don't worry, you're cool. You can be a dual citizen," France, and the other country says you have to choose. Which one do you choose? You choose the one who gives you freedom, not the one that tries to constrain you.
And the best cheese. Let's be clear.
That's true. By far the best cheese.
Oh God, the fromage. Oh my God. I have never come that close to an orgasm from just eating a piece of something. And we went to a fromagerie in Paris, and the guy selling says, "This is the 1 year version." And we tried it, and it was, oh my God, that's so good. He says, "This is the 4-year-old aged version." And oh my God, eyes roll in the back of your head. Oh, it's like, oh. So yeah, just if there's no question. I mean, American cheese cheese made here in the U.S. can be okay, but it's nothing like that. Oh my God.
No, that's true. Like that. And I've had really good cheese, but here in the States. But Scott, we're about to wrap it up here.
Well, Ted, wait, let me before that, I want to ask what's your litmus test? What's your mark of demarcation to say, okay,
state of emergency, we're suspending civil liberties. That's my, I mean, like you, if they were to arrest like Don Lemon or some shit like that, that would also be, I can have several litmus tests, both of those. But
state of emergency, you're absolutely right. Because then truly all bets are off. Then they can, Oh boy. Okay. I wish, is there any good news here? No, are you about to get hit by the ice storm?
It's coming in on Sunday for here in New York. So
fun. Good times.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, it's been a pleasure as always. Looking forward to next week. We are usually here at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, my fault. My bad.
We will be back to our normal schedule next week. Please like, follow, and share the DMZ America podcast wherever podcasts are sold. We do appreciate your support, especially since we're only once a week. We need it more than maybe the other shows. Please tune in tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, to Deprogram with John Kiriakou and myself. That's also, and then at 10 o'clock, turn into the TMI show with Manila Chan and myself. Both shows on Rumble and YouTube Live, streamable 24/7 after that. And of course, now I know that you've all been waiting for the audio entertainment portion of the broadcast. And away we go. Sing, sing, monkey, sing.
1, 2, 3.
Oh.
Ice, ice, baby.
I thought you would do Pressure.
Ice, baby.
By Bowie.
Oh, ding.
Thank you very much.